The plastic chair beneath me creaked each time I shifted, the kind of noise that made people look over their shoulders, even though no one here cared enough to turn around. The plasma donation center always smelled faintly of bleach and something metallic, and today, my arm ached before they even called my name. $40. That was the number taped to the inside of my mind like a deadline. $40 for half a tank of breath. A nurse in scrubs. Her badge read, Lacey took my sample without much conversation. She slipped the vial under the fluorescent light, paused, and blinked. Then she walked off so fast her shoes squeaked. I thought maybe she'd spilled something. Then a doctor appeared at the edge of the curtain, a clipboard in his hand. Eyes scanning me like I'd brought trouble through the door. Ms. Haynes, he asked. I nodded, already feeling the impatience rising. Whatever they were seeing in that tube wasn't going to help me breathe. I just need the money, I said before he could open his mouth. I'm fine enough. He hesitated like there was a script he was supposed to follow and I'd skipped ahead. We'll run this one more time, he murmured almost to himself. Just wait here. I didn't ask why. I didn't care. Last night I'd been on my knees in the hallway, chest tight, vision dark around the edges. Damon stepped over me on his way to the kitchen, muttering, then stop walking so much. I had asked him, begging really, if he could help pay for my inhaler. He threw the electric bill at my feet. Pick, he said. Meds or lights. The doctor returned just as quickly as he'd left, but by then my legs already felt stiff from sitting too long. I didn't wait for his explanation. I just signed the release, took the appointment slip for the payout window, and walked out. Outside, the wind cut right through my coat. I pulled it close, pressing my sore arm against my ribs, and stood at the bus stop while headlights blurred past. I had $40 coming, but I needed more than that long before I stepped onto that bus. The couch groans beneath me each night, same as my bones. Damon says it's temporary, but 2 years on a pullout doesn't feel temporary. It feels like a sentence. I fold it back every morning before he wakes up, tuck the blanket under the cushion, and wipe down the coffee table like I'm still a guest who overstayed her welcome. When the diner closed, I thought I'd bounce back. One bad batch of shrimp. One bad Yelp review that spiraled out of control. I drained my savings trying to fix the damage pay fines cover sick customers' claims. Then came the eviction notice on the storefront. Then came Michael. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, silent, while I held our wedding photo in one hand and the overdue tax bill in the other. You ruined us, he said. I can't breathe in this mess anymore. He packed his bags within an hour, took everything but the ring. Now my days revolve around invisible labor. I scrub Damon's dishes, pick up after his wife when she leaves coffee rings on the counter, and play peekaboo with my grandson in between loads of laundry. Damon doesn't thank me. He barely looks at me. You're lucky I let you stay, he said last week when I asked if I could use the oven for something that wasn't boxed or frozen. The phone rang while I was folding towels. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was another scammer or debt collector, but it wasn't. This is Dr. Mehta from the plasma clinic, the voice said. I wanted to follow up on your results. He explained my blood type. Rh null. Less than 50 people in the world have it. No antigens. Universal donor. Extremely rare. Extremely valuable. We've received an urgent request from a hospital in Switzerland, he continued. They're asking if you'd be willing to discuss a private arrangement. I stared out the window at the same cracked sidewalk I walked every day. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just wrote his name down and folded it into my wallet right next to the picture of my grandson. The call came the next morning while I was rinsing out Damon's coffee mugs. A woman introduced herself with a crisp, practiced tone, the kind people use when they're accustomed to doors opening before they even knock. Mrs. Haynes, I'm calling on behalf of St. Renold Private Hospital in Geneva. We understand you were informed of your blood type yesterday. We'd like to discuss an urgent matter. I dried my hands on a dish towel and moved to the hallway, lowering my voice the way people do when they're afraid of hearing themselves say something unbelievable. She explained everything in a slow, steady rhythm. Their patient, a child, was in need of a transplant that required my exact blood type. Renal wasn't just rare, it was practically unheard of. The family was prepared to compensate me for my time and risk. $2 million. A chartered jet. A medical suite. Private security. It felt like a story meant for someone else's life. Someone luckier. Someone who hadn't been sleeping on a sagging couch. "I'll do it," I said. Not dramatic. Not breathless. Just a decision I felt settle into my bones. Within hours, the clinic emailed a stack of documents. Contracts, medical waivers, travel arrangements, instructions. I signed where they told me to sign, scanning each page twice. When the notification came through, an advance deposit, more money in one transfer than I'd seen in years, I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't even have a chance to breathe before Damon walked into the kitchen. "What the hell is that?" He pointed at my phone like it had betrayed him personally. "Just some government assistance," I said, keeping my voice even. He snorted. "Since when does the government give out that kind of cash?" I slid my phone into my pocket. "Since now." He stared a moment too long, suspicion sharpening his expression, but he eventually walked off, muttering under his breath. That night, after everyone went to bed, I pulled my old suitcase from the closet. I slipped the contracts inside. The house was silent, but for the first time in years, my pulse wasn't. The clinic called just after sunrise. I stepped onto the back porch to answer, letting the cold boards steady me under my bare feet. The coordinator spoke calmly, confirming my flight time, the pre-travel screening, the driver who would arrive tomorrow. Everything was arranged with a precision I hadn't experienced in years. When I hung up and slid the phone into my pocket, Damon was standing in the doorway, arms folded, jaw tight. "Who was that?" he asked. "Appointment reminder," I said. "I'm traveling for a few days." His eyebrows shot up. "Traveling where?" "Somewhere quiet," I answered. "Just for a bit." He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if he were the one protecting a secret. "You think you can just sneak out of here with whatever money you're hiding? That money should help this house." I looked at him. Really looked. The boy who once clung to my leg on the first day of kindergarten had become a man who didn't see me as anything beyond what I could provide. And right then, I felt something inside me settle. Not anger, not fear. Something like acceptance. "I'm taking care of what I need to take care of," I said. "That sounds like guilt," he shot back. "People only say things like that when they're running." I didn't argue. There was no point. Instead, I walked past him, went to the hall closet, and brought out the overnight bag I hadn't used since Michael left. I folded a change of clothes, my medication, the documents from the clinic. Then I sat at the kitchen table and booked a motel room near the airport one night, paid in advance, no questions asked. Before leaving for my shift at the grocery store, my daughter-in-law dropped my grandson off in the living room. He ran to hug my waist breath, wheezing a little the way mine sometimes did. I knelt beside him and tucked a small note into his backpack. "Breathe easy, kiddo. Grandma is, too." That night, while the house slept, I zipped my bag, turned off the lights, and closed the door behind me. The car was waiting before sunrise, black, polished, silent. The driver opened the door without a word. Inside, soft classical music played low, a bowl of fresh fruit sat untouched beside me, and a nurse named Elise took my vitals with warm hands and a kind smile. No forms, no questions, just care. We drove past streets I'd walked for years on foot, tired, unseen. Now they blurred past the window like a life I was leaving behind. At the airport, the jet stood waiting. A staircase rolled into place. Another nurse greeted me by name, offered me her arm. Inside, leather seats cradled my back. I was offered tea water, a blanket. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful. "Are you comfortable?" she asked. The question hit harder than I expected. I nodded, but my throat tightened before I could speak. No one had asked me that in years. Not at the diner, not in my son's house, not even when I was gasping for air. On the plane, they let me sleep. No one poked, no one barked orders, just silence and sky. Geneva was cold and clean. I was taken straight to the clinic where the staff moved like water, quiet and efficient. And waiting just beyond the reception area was a family I'd never met, already in tears. A woman stepped forward first, mid-30s, elegant, exhausted. She gripped both my hands without hesitation. "I'm Greta," she said. "My son. He wouldn't be alive without you." Nicholas, just 9 years old, peeked from behind her. Pale, small, fragile. But his eyes met mine. He smiled. I didn't have the words. I just reached out and held his hand for a moment, and his fingers curled back around mine. That night in the hotel room they'd arranged, I stood by the window and looked out at the jagged line of snow-capped mountains cutting across the sky. It didn't feel real, any of it. And when I finally let go of holding myself together, the tears came deep and sudden, like something breaking free after being trapped for too long. I fell asleep still in my coat, the hum of the heater soft, the window wide open to the stars. The donation took less than an hour. The nurse said I made it look easy, but I think she knew better than to say too much. I watched the slow drip from the bag, thinking not about money or flights, but about Nicholas, about how small his hand had felt in mine. Afterward, they gave me warm broth and a blanket. Then the clinic lawyer arrived, neatly dressed, polite, no pretense. He laid the documents out on a wide table in my room. "This is the structure we discussed," he said. "The full amount will be held in trust under your name. You'll have access through appointed channels, all taxes handled, fully protected." I flipped through each page. Nothing hidden. No fine print that made me feel stupid. "I want a portion allocated to asthma research," I said, "specifically for low-income clinics. Kids, mostly." He didn't blink. "We can designate 15% effective immediately," I nodded. 20. He made a note. 20 it is. The pen in my hand didn't shake this time. I signed every line with the calm I didn't even know I had left. When it was done, I sat back and exhaled slowly. Not like I was relieved, but like I could finally breathe without anyone waiting to take it from me. They left me alone afterward, letting me rest. I dozed off and woke to a notification on my phone. Damon. Somehow, he'd caught wind of the wire transfer. Maybe the advance showed up in a joint account I forgot to close. His post was public. Funny how my broke mother suddenly has medical business overseas. Wonder what she's hiding. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I opened my banking app and scrolled through every account still linked to my name. I froze them all. Changed every password. Cut off every shared access. No drama, no warning. Just a lock clicking into place. By the time I closed the app, the room felt different. Not larger, but mine. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like something borrowed. I felt like someone whole. I returned to the country, but I didn't go home. I stayed in a hotel instead. Then I received an email from my son. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Damon's tone had been shifting for days, his emails growing colder, more clipped, pressing to know when I was coming back and what I was really doing over there. The subject line was formal. Notice of filing. Inside, attached as a PDF, was a legal petition. Damon was requesting control of my assets, citing mental instability, compromised judgment, and possible exploitation by foreign parties. The words blurred before they settled, each line colder than the last. My own son was trying to reduce me to paperwork. I downloaded the file, printed it at the hotel business center, and slipped the pages into my purse. Then I asked the driver to take me to a small law firm on the edge of town, the same one that had walked me through the closing of my diner. When I stepped into the lobby, the receptionist's face lit up with recognition. "Mrs. Haynes," she said, "it's been a while." They ushered me into a sunlit office that smelled faintly of old books and lemon polish. Mr. Alder, who once sat across from me as I cried over tax forms and bankruptcy filings, looked older now, but his eyes were the same steady patient. "How can we help today?" he asked. I handed him the envelope. He scanned the pages, jaw tightening just slightly. "We'll handle this," he said. "But while we're here, is there anything else you'd like to put in writing?" There was. More than I'd realized. We drafted a new will. Clean, simple, final. Everything I had, everything I would ever have, would go to my grandson. No conditions, no footnotes, no mention of Damon. When it was done, I felt something ease in my chest, like loosening the first knot in a long, tangled rope. Before leaving, I asked Mr. Alder to send a formal response on my behalf. "Inform Mr. Haynes," I said, "that all future inquiries can be directed to my counsel." Back at the hotel, I let the quiet settle around me. That night, I slept deeply without that old, familiar weight pressing at the back of my ribs. And when morning came, I was already reaching for my suitcase. The house I bought sat on a gravel road just past the edge of town. Modest, sturdy, with paint that had faded, but not peeled. The kitchen could only fit one person comfortably, and the porch creaked if you leaned too far to the left. I loved it instantly. I planted string beans along the fence corn in the back plot, where the soil ran a little deeper. The woman next door waved at me with her gardening gloves still on, and that was all the conversation either of us needed. My grandson came by the first weekend. His mother dropped him off with a sigh and a warning about allergies. He brought me a drawing, a picture of me standing in front of a house with stars in the window. "That's you," he said, pointing. "You're holding soup." I laughed and promised him I'd make real soup next time. He told me little things. Things Damon didn't say out loud. That his dad slammed doors now. That he'd stopped playing music in the kitchen. That sometimes he asked about me, then told everyone he didn't care. A few nights later, Damon texted, "You're being cold." Then an hour later, "You've changed." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I thought about replying, maybe even just a simple line, "You changed first," but I didn't. I deleted both messages and set the phone face down on the table. That evening, after washing the dishes and sweeping the porch, I stepped outside. The sun had already dipped behind the trees. I reached up and clicked on the porch light. It lit the step and the small patch of gravel like a quiet promise. I didn't turn it on for anyone in particular. I just liked the way it felt to come home to something that glowed. And in that quiet, humming yellow light, I sat down, sipped warm tea, and waited for nothing. The call came just after breakfast while I was picking weeds from between the rows of corn. I let it ring twice before answering, wiping my hands on my shirt. It was Elise, the nurse from Geneva. Her voice was just as calm as I remembered. "The family has asked for a second donation," she said. "A smaller one. Nothing urgent, just a safeguard for the future." I didn't ask how much or why it had to be me. I already knew. And this time, it wasn't the money I thought about. It was the boy, Nicholas. A week after I returned from Switzerland, I received a small envelope in the mail. Inside was a folded piece of construction paper, blue, with a red heart in the center. He'd drawn me standing tall, holding the heart like a trophy. Above it, in wobbly letters, was one word, Danke. I kept it on the fridge right next to my grandson's drawing of a soup bowl under stars. "Yes," I told Elise. "Of course, just tell me when." There was no hesitation in my voice this time, no fear of losing something. Only the quiet knowledge that I still had more to give. After the call, I took a photo of me and my grandson standing in front of the garden string beans climbing behind us, dirt on both our shoes. I printed it out at the pharmacy and mailed it to Geneva. With it, I sent a handwritten note. "I don't have much, but I had enough to give twice. Take care of him." I didn't hear back right away, and that was fine. Some gifts don't need applause. That night after my grandson went home and the sun had dipped low behind the trees, I sat on the porch again, holding a warm mug between both hands. There was a peace in knowing that something inside me, something I never asked for, never expected, had kept a boy alive. And that in doing so it had kept something in me alive too. The tablecloth was an old one, red and white checks frayed at the corners. I laid it across the porch table, smoothing out the wrinkles with my palms. The bread had just come out of the oven, the crust still crackling as it cooled beside a dish of roasted squash. My grandson sat a few feet away, legs tucked under him, flipping through a library book he'd already read 3 times. The dog, borrowed from the neighbor, and now half mine by default, snored gently beneath his chair. The quiet didn't press on me like it used to. It didn't feel like absence or punishment. It felt like something I had earned, claimed, folded into the shape of a life. Rosa from next door walked over with a jar of jam apricot, her specialty, and left it on the table without fuss. "Don't eat it all in one sitting," she teased, already turning to go. I smiled, watching her shuffle back across the yard, apron still on. Inside my desk sat tidy and still, except for the check I'd written earlier. It was small by the world's standards, maybe not even enough to buy a billboard or a wing of a building, but it would matter to someone. I'd made it out to a community asthma program in a city I'd never visited. I signed it beneath my mother's maiden name, the same one I used when I first opened the diner, before anyone told me I had to change to be taken seriously. My hands trembled a little as I placed it into the envelope. Not from nerves, not from weakness, just age. And even that no longer felt like something to be ashamed of. I looked around my kitchen walls. I'd painted shelves I'd filled with jars and flour and dried herbs I could pronounce. No noise, no fear of being told I'd overstayed, overstepped, overreached. The bread cooled. The boy read. The light on the porch stayed on, not for protection, but because I liked the way it made the steps glow. And I realized what they called rare had been mine all along.